welcome to Meeple Syrup Show, live from the Gathering of Friends 2015. I'm your host, Senfeng Lim, and I'm here with my good friend Andreas Preiss from Zoch. What is the rest of it?
Zoch
Verlag
in Munich, Germany, and hi everybody. Hi Sen.
So Andreas is a representative of Zoch, and you might know Zoch from such games as San Fernito, I can't pronounce how to Hick, Hack, and Hannerstack.
Not Änderung, Hick, Hack, and Gackelback.
That's it. And excuse me. Of course, one of their most famous products that we probably know here in North America would be Picomino. What other titles have you worked on personally for Zoch?
Well, I've had the pleasure to be working on the third installment of Ghost Blitz. Ghost Blitz.
All right.
5 to
Yeah,
Midnight.
of course.
Ghost Blitz also rather well-known series of games at this point, and basically anything that's been published the last 2 years.
You've laid your hands on in some way, shape, or form.
In some way, shape, or form.
Okay. And what is your exact job title?
I just have to say, my business card says international games, licenses, and production. So
Okay.
I'm working closely with the guys in editing, and I'm working a lot with product acquisition, vendor relations.
Okay.
That
So like this.
area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you go to conventions around the world,
It's something I like
Some,
to do.
yeah.
Yeah.
and you also do a lot of in-house stuff, like we were just talking about the editor's retreat that you're going to in a couple of weeks. That's going to last a few weeks.
So it's selection of games, refining rules, figuring out what we do want to publish or not want to publish, on what shape and form, and then of course what can be published given the restraints, production costs.
Right. Okay. So some things you might like to publish,
Yes.
but you can't publish.
Yes, of
And
course.
some things that you're not so hot on publishing, but hey, you know what? We should do that because of whatever reasons, logistics, and this would fit well with one of our other lines and things like that.
I mean, we only publish games that we believe in the first
Right.
place. So, but of course, if there's a game that is easy to produce, the rules are clear, and we don't have to fiddle with them anymore. Maybe even we have illustrations for it already.
Right.
Sometimes happens that graphics designers are also game inventors, something like that. Yeah, there are a lot of different circumstances that can lead us to publish a game. And of course, with games that are easy to produce, it's also easy to publish. You don't take a lot of risk if you publish a small card game that you don't have to put too much work in anymore.
Right. Yeah, so that's kind of what I mentioned. I didn't mean that you didn't like the game. I meant that it would have been that there would have been a game that you would have much rather published, but it was too difficult to publish. But there was a game that you liked, not as much as that other game, but it would have been easier to publish for whatever reason. So how did you get started in this industry?
Choice paired with a lot of luck.
Okay,
So,
and explain the process.
I finished college and wanted to get in the industry. Of course, I'm a gamer. I was trying to hint at designing games at that point, so I already had a couple of business cards, and I had been to the fairs and the designer meetings and whatnot. And in Göttingen, which is one of the big designer fairs in Germany, I talked to the people that I could talk to who were in the industry, and Peter Eggert happened to be among those.
From Eggert Spiel.
And he offered to give me basically an internship. I did that for roughly a year, and while I was doing that, I happened to be informed that Zoch was potentially looking. So got in touch. I happened to have studied in the same city where they are located. So Munich is what I'm talking about, and it worked out really nicely.
Right, and for those of you who don't know, because you probably don't know Andreas, but he actually went to school for law.
Way back, just for a short while. I figured out that it
wasn't
my thing.
Right.
Quite quickly.
And games became your thing eventually.
Absolutely, yeah. I've been I've been playing since childhood.
Yeah.
My parents, I was lucky enough that my parents started that at the right time.
Right.
Being as early as possible.
Right. So, so you've designed some games. Are there any games of yours that have been published?
No.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Is that still on hold?
Nah, not really. Because
really?
It would be nice, of course, but I'm not working on designs.
Right.
So as long as you don't put out new ideas, nothing is going to get published because
Right.
there's nothing to publish. And the more creativity, the more of your time and power you put into other people's designs, which of course is my job. I do that all the time.
Right.
The less you will be willing and able to do so with something that you might come up yourself.
Right. Okay. For people who are interested in getting a job in the industry, what do you think they really need to do? So you went through an internship.
Right.
You went to the fairs and met people. Do you think that's the best way to do it?
I don't think there's a one straight route that definitely will work, and that's the only way that it will work. But you really have to want it in the first place,
Right.
and you have to be aware that there are very few jobs available in the industry, so your chances are not good.
Right.
Like I said earlier, I was lucky. I happened to be in the right place and been talking to the right people at the right time.
Right.
But internships might definitely work.
Okay.
You might want to have finished college.
Finish your education, people. It's very important.
Right. Doesn't really matter what. Many people who work in editing and related fields within the board game industry have a degree that is more in natural sciences, so mathematics, give
Right.
or take, which I don't.
Right.
I'm more of a language guy, but just the degree in and of itself, I think, helps.
Yeah, it helps you learn how to learn, how to
Exactly.
interact with people on a level that's more intellectual, perhaps. Okay, so let's talk specifically about Zoch. What are Zoch's kind of mottos? What are they looking for in games? What are their ideals?
It's very hard because at this point we are publishing a broad range of games. We definitely strive for quality, both as far as the games, the mechanisms, and the rules are concerned, but also as far as the components are concerned. Illustration is something that we do try to take care of, to have top-notch people working on that. Besides from that, we try to find something that we think is interesting. I mean, what kind of board game can you sell? You can sell a board game that people will not have a hard time with learning and understanding to get into, but that offers something new, that's different, and that new taste, whatever you want to call it, that's usually what we're.
Okay, and one of the things that I've learned particularly from you is in terms of dexterity games or action games, and Zoch publishes quite a few titles that are in that realm, where there's more of physicality to the game. And isn't part of Zoch's kind of, I don't know, title or line something about wood?
Absolutely. No, the slogan of the company
that's the word.
used to be great games made from wood.
Okay, say it in German.
I think it is edle Spiele aus Holz oder gemacht aus Holz.
That, yes. And so, Zoch.
And I joined the company after they used the slogan. That's why I'm not 100% sure.
But that was that. I mean, Zoch to me, in a lot of ways, is the quintessential German board game company because of the quality of componentry that they use, the quality of art that they use, the accessibility, yet that kind of interesting twist on rules that all the games have, and that a lot of the games are family oriented. And so I play tons of Zoch games. Like I was telling Andreas and his wife that my kids are basically raised on Zoch games. Zoch and Haba.
Yeah.
Haba when they're younger, Zoch when they're kind of in their middle, you know, before they're around 12, and then now that my oldest is over that, he kind of picks what he wants to play. But before that, it's always Haba, and then they grow into Zoch. And going back to Zoch, one of the things that we love about Zoch games is the physicality. And so Andreas has told me in the past that what Zoch is looking for, or what he looks for in a game that he's hoping to publish with his company, the company he works for, is a game where the winner is definite. Or not the winner, but the person who claims something in a physical game is very definite. And so we've shown you a bunch of games that are like, oh yeah, it's a good game, however, nobody knows who actually did the thing correctly. And yes, if you're playing amongst friends, there might not be an argument, but what you want to do is ensure that there is no room for argument. So things like the banana in Banana Macho. It's a banana that you hit and it squeaks. And so if you didn't hit it and it didn't squeak, you were not the person who did it first, right? And so that's one of the things I've learned from you in terms of advice on how to make specific types of games. What other types of advice would you give to designers in terms of making a game that would be a good Zoch game, a good fit for the company you work with?
Again, broad range.
Broad range.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you have a question that's more specific, I will try to answer that. But besides from that, really try to find something that is accessible yet offers something new. That combination really is it. And then depending on what kind of game we're looking at specifically, like you were mentioning dexterity games, Ghost Blitz being probably, I don't want to say almost one, but that's not true because Bamboleo and Bauzak and Hamsterrolle, as some of our long sellers, are of course also dexterity games, wooden components.
Yes, wooden components. Yeah.
So what you said is definitely true for that kind of game. The who identifies what to do the quickest.
Right.
But that's a special case.
Yeah, quick reaction games. Exactly. What about games that Zoch will not publish? What are those?
Very little. Very little where I would say, no, I don't even need to have a look at it. The theme, especially if the theme is directly related to the mechanisms used, and if the theme is like war.
Okay.
War straight out. And sports is something that will probably not work for us.
Even if it's a dexterity type game, you don't want it to be sports themed.
Definitely not. And I mean, of course, if you show me a prototype that is sports themed but doesn't need to be, that's not a problem.
Right.
But if you have a game and the mechanisms used are directly linked to the fact that yes, this is a sports game,
right,
then it will not work for us.
Right.
Yeah.
And what about games that are kind of outside of your wheelhouse in terms of length of time, player count, mechanisms? What are games that people who are looking to show you games should or shouldn't show you?
Like I said, I'm willing to look at most anything if time permits, but I found it a good couple of times that authors were less willing to show me games than I was willing to look at them.
Interesting.
So just give it a try, quick pitch, single sentence, 2 sentences, and I will tell you, no, that doesn't sound like something that I need to look at. But rather that way around than that I have to ask you, and what else do you have, or would be interested, what is it? Is it completely outside of your scope? Maybe, but I mean, we're sitting here, you've got a design which you think is good, else that you wouldn't have it on you. Show it to me if you like.
That's an interesting point because a lot of the publishers that we talk to would say, don't waste my time.
True, and of course, I mean, if you're a designer and you approach a company, know what they publish.
Right.
That's not only true for Zoch. I think that's generally true. But show, of course, what you think fits the publisher's line best first, and if there's still some time left, 3 more games. One is roughly this inside, one works like this, and one is no. Would you want to look at any of the 3? And that's 30 seconds, 45 seconds. That's not wasting any time.
Yeah, so lead off with your strong stuff.
Absolutely.
Follow up with maybe, okay, here's a quick overview.
Right.
Maybe a sell sheet or something to take home if you don't have time. Because oftentimes people will come up to Andreas, I'll be sitting next to him playing games with them or something, and they'll say, okay, I have this game, it's not really Zoch. And Andreas will say, let me be the judge of that.
Sometimes not in exactly those words.
Not those words,
of course.
but that's a sentiment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because companies are ever evolving and ever changing, right? And things that are your standbys, like all the chicken games and things like that, that's great, but that doesn't mean that's all that you do, right? And you showed me one this year that's coming out that is totally not like what you guys normally publish, so that's cool. So be on the lookout for just
have a look at Mangrovia,
yeah.
which you would probably not have expected us to publish if you only knew our chicken line of games.
And the chicken line is cool, but there's other stuff that Zoch does, right? So very cool. One last thing. Other than there's a few other questions I do want to ask you.
Go ahead.
So I'll ask you the one last thing at the last end. So best thing about the gathering. What has been your best thing that you've seen here?
Best
other
thing
than
about or see? Yeah, exactly. That's the point. The people, really.
Yeah.
That's really where it's at. It's, I mean, from a professional point of view, it's a good time to connect to people in the US, which you might not see that often over in Germany. But besides from that, you get great feedback from people who really know and love games. So it's a good crowd to have a look at not only their designs, but also have them have a look at what you are planning to do and see how they react. So that kind of thing.
Yeah, so he comes over often with prototypes of their forthcoming products. We get to try them, give him some feedback before they go to production, and let him know how we feel about them. And that's a really, I think it's a privilege to be able to influence in any way, shape, or form, even if it doesn't happen, but just being able to have the ear of somebody like Andreas is really kind of a privilege. Which is the best game, not Zoch, that you played at the gathering this year, whether it's a prototype or whether it's a published game?
Not Zoch.
Yeah, a non-Zoch game.
Let me think. Let's put it in a different way.
Oh, okay, you can reframe that.
Right. What I've seen is that what a couple of years back I would have considered to be very French-style games, with a lot of communication, free association between just rough terms thrown onto the table or pictures, and working on those as a group. That is more and more permeating the board game culture of the other countries. So that's something that's pretty cool. Right, so communication games in general you think are a kind of a thing now. Especially the more fantastic, more dreamlike, more like the less frying pans and dead Santas. I'm not even sure what you're talking about.
Oh, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
But exactly, I mean, there's a time to play hardcore strategy games and to be directly, I've got 1 point more than you, I win, that kind of thing, where you really fight for every little inch of what can be done within the game. And then there's a time where you want to enjoy each other's company and want to see how other people think. And I mean, it's really hard to get into somebody else's head in a positive way, to see things in a slightly different light than you would do it yourself. And so these kind of games I was referring to earlier, they offer a glimpse at that, and it's an interesting development. I like it. Worst ghost ever. I'm just putting it out there. So last piece of thing that I wanted to ask you before you can like slap me off camera is, what is the one piece of advice, other than stuff you've already said, that you would give to novice designers or experienced designers about the wide world of game design? What is it? What's the one thing? Have your prototype ready. That is including complete rules, please. Have your name and your address on those rules, as well as use a box on the box that you put your prototype in, and on top and on the sides, because if we stack them on shelves, that really makes our life a lot easier.
Perfect. All right, Andreas, it was super nice to talk to you. It was awesome seeing you as always. Yeah, and I look forward to our time together every year. I wait for German Jesus to come.
Thanks.
All right, thanks, Meeple Syrup. We'll see you guys later.
Bye-bye.